There's a theme that keeps coming up. I don't even know if you'd call it a theme, but this idea that we can control our future by acting like the person we want to be in the future. And essentially, we would be acting as a magnet and attracting. This is the law of attraction, just pulling in a future state that we want for ourselves. And it's one thing to know what we want that to be, and then it's another thing to be willing to change to start on the path to becoming that future state. And then a whole other thing is actually doing it. You got to know, you got to be willing, and then you got to act. But it's just interesting because I never considered this until the past year, it seems like. And I've been thinking a lot about self-improvement for a while now. But this idea of becoming our future self by acting like our future self. And to be able to do this, you have to accept that change is inevitable. And so if you're operating off of that basis, you can at least find some comfort in knowing, like, okay, well, if change is inevitable, I might as well change the way I want as much as possible. And once you're thinking about that, then you start thinking, okay, well, what should I change? What needs to change? Why do I want to change? Do I not feel right about certain things? Do I not feel right about myself? And when you ask these things, the answers are pretty obvious whether or not you dislike something about yourself. You know something needs to change, but you're not really sure what. And from there, you kind of have to just workshop yourself. It's like a process of elimination. You know, if you have a stomach bug or something's messing with your gut, you got to cut out certain things to see what's messing with you. And it's the same thing with habits. You know, and certain things they help you for a while, but then you can outgrow them, and it's hard when certain things are ingrained in who we are. It's not easy to let go of who we think we are, of our identity, because then that's a whole lot of change, and oftentimes too much at once, and that throws our sense of reality into a loop. And then you kind of go through this what's the term? You're facing your shadow. I'm blanking on the term. where you're face to face with the darkest part of yourself, where, and I've gone through this. This was back in college now, 10 now 10 10 or 11 years ago was my, I would say, mental rock bottom. I had no purpose. I didn't know what I wanted to do with myself. Dark night of the soul, that's what I was thinking of. You know that something needs to change, but you don't think you're able, or yeah, that's, I mean, I guess that comes, it's just, willingness is one thing, but how can you know if you're willing to do something if you're not sure what you need to do? And one shouldn't come into it, because when you're operating from a state, from a weak state, where, for example, in high school I spent a lot of time just drinking and playing video games. That's all I wanted to do. And then watching TV, watching sports, being idle, not drinking water, not taking care of myself. I wanted it, and this is how most people, well, it's hard to say how many people, a lot of people live in a state of constant pleasure where they want to feel good. Everyone wants to feel good. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's just like a natural thing to want. But we get caught up in these traps of things that give us immediate pleasure but cause more suffering long term. And we're not always willing to put in the work to increase pleasure long term at the expense of hardship in the short term. There's always an opportunity cost. And if you feel like something's wrong, you gotta take these things into account. Like, what are you getting pleasure from now? And what is that taking away from your future self? I can't even tell you how much money I spent on weed in college. Basically put me into debt. So I wouldn't work. I was just getting by with classes. And now the future, from my college point of view, future me, which is me now, is living with all this debt. And it is what it is, but eventually I realized that although there was a time where weed was helping me a lot, it helped me sleep and just feel good about myself, but eventually the cons were outweighing the benefits, and I was struggling to sleep, and then I was always feeling like my brain was fried. I was having headaches. And it's going to affect everyone differently. I'm not knocking weed in general, but I was able to acknowledge, like, okay, something needs to change because I'm not feeling right on a day-to-day basis. Like, I was feeling worse than like physically. Like, it's one thing to just be depressed, which the weed was helping a lot with, but at a certain point, when you physically just you're having a hard time sleeping, and you just feel physically uncomfortable in your body, something needs to change. And so I cut out weed, and then fast forward several more years. This was a couple years ago. I've been sober for 2.5 years now, because again, I could just physically feel like all the anxiety in my body was telling me something needed to change. So I started changing a bunch of things, and it took a while. I wasn't sure if the alcohol would help. I mean, I only knew that alcohol was making it worse in the moment, but that didn't make the anxiety go away right away. So you kind of have to give yourself the space to try different things if something's not working with your life. And I've said this before, there's no one size fits all. You kind of have to workshop with it. That's why it's hard to give advice. I mean, people do it anyway, give advice. Like, there's general advice you can give. Eat better, exercise, go for walks, read. Like, these are basic things that are going to make your life better if you do them consistently. But if you look at someone's specific situation, there are going to be specific habits, ways of approaching situations that can be done better, I believe. And the only way to really be able to do that is, one, you take a good long look at yourself, where you're at, or you have someone else do it. You have someone help you. That's why therapy is so huge, because same thing with journaling, because it brings other people, or even when you're writing down on paper, the thoughts that come out, that are brought out of you, they're just subconsciously in you, waiting like you knew deep down certain things, but consciously it just didn't connect in the way you needed it to. And when you start taking yourself, not seriously is not the right word, but when you start prioritizing your self-care, and long-term self-care, not just prioritizing immediate pleasures, prioritizing long-term enjoyment and satisfaction, you'll be able to pick up on what you should do. And sometimes, everything you do isn't gonna work out, or like, again, it's the workshopping. You got to figure out what things resonate more. What time of day is the best time to do certain things that you want to do, or like what time should you go to bed, or how many hours do you need? I've been thinking this for a while now. It'd be so much easier if we came with a manual or whatever. I ended up spending money on one of these Oura rings to help me figure out my sleeping habits, because I struggle with sleep and it's hard. But I know, because I've been paying attention, that I know that I need to improve something. I need to change something, and that's the hardest part. Most of the time, it's the hardest part. But I mean, once you acknowledge that there's a problem, then the possibilities are pretty much endless, because something's got to change, and there are many ways to change things. And yeah, I'm just rambling now, but I guess what I'm getting at is, if I were to help someone figure out what they need to do to change their lives for the better. For starters, if they're coming to me, or if you're coming to anyone for help, you're already at that stage. You already you passed the hard part where you know something's got to change. And well, I guess I would say it's even harder to know how to change. The first step is the hardest. I guess it really depends on what it is. Like going to the gym, deciding to go to the gym. Okay, yeah. Deciding to go to the gym is one thing, but getting there, that's the hard part. So it's how you're going to do that thing. And I guess, well, the gym, once you get there though, then you got to know what you're going to do there. And I've spent many times just kind of, even sometimes planning, sometimes not, just kind of winging it, whatever was open. Then I just ended up hurting myself, and then I don't go back. But there's different ways to work out. Everyone kind of just assumes like, oh, go to the gym and then I'll just do whatever everyone else is doing. But there's other things you can do. You can go to, I think the studio format for what yoga, Pilates is like so much better, because there's no competition with anyone. You're not like isolated, where at the gym everyone's kind of just like peacocking. And what was I getting at? I guess it doesn't matter which part is the hardest. I could get into the nitty-gritty of the philosophy of which part of the habit forming process is the hardest, but the point is, doing the thing so you have to figure out for yourself whether or not something needs to change. Someone else can't tell you that. Because I mean, if everything's hunky-dory, then why would you change anything? You might be, setting yourself up for a debilitating future with your bad habits, but in your mind, you're having a good time. So if that's you, then you're pretty much screwed. But no one's gonna force you to get help. But there are plenty of people that know they need to change something. And then I guess the reaching out part, because then you got to know who to reach. It's definitely, it seems like there's a lot of people, if you were in need of help, there's a lot of people you can reach out to, but somehow that seems like the hardest part. Because then once you're reaching out to someone, then it becomes real. Once you realize that you need to change something, until you reach out to someone for help, there's no obligation to do anything about it. But once you bring someone else into the mix, it's like, okay, if I don't take myself seriously, or if I don't care for myself, then no one else is going to. You can reach out for help, get someone to try to care about you, I guess that's not the right way to put it. Get someone to focus on what you need. But if you're not willing to take guidance, then I'm getting off track. It's hard. There's a lot. I'm thinking about recovery. I have family members who are alcoholics and former drug addicts, and you have to, I guess in certain situations you want to change, but you just, there's a pull to what that immediate pleasure, because there's other emotions involved of self-worth and pride, and reaching out for help it can take a hit to your pride, and that's why we're so stubborn, because we're prideful of our habits and our identity, and we know we should change things, but even though they're bad habits, changing them would change our identity. And then if we change our identity, then we don't know who we are, and that's sometimes scarier than slowly destroying ourselves with the identity that we know. And that's where, I guess, just looping back to where I started, just imagining your future self and communicating with that future self. You're creating a whole new identity for yourself out of just based in your imagination. You could change everything about yourself. You just need the idea of that person, and then you work backwards. Like, what's the goal? And then what do you have to change about yourself to reach that goal? The goal is not going to bring you happiness, or you're not going to be satisfied with yourself long term unless you change yourself to be who you need to be to reach that goal, and then still be content with yourself. It's a lot. At a certain point I'm going in circles, and there's only so much you can really say unless you go off of specifics. Maybe I'll speak more about my past in future videos, but I think it's important to consider who we are. I've been thinking about identity for a while now, over a decade at least. Just who I am, and there's no easy way to answer it. There have been answers, but unless I've never really backed up those answers with action, and now that I finally am, it's starting to feel more authentic. And at a certain point, once you're changing things and you're moving in a direction, you kind of have a good idea of whether that direction is not necessarily the right one, but a good direction. Like, you're going on, you're on a good path, you're on the right path, because you don't really know where the path is going. You don't really know exactly who you're becoming, but you have an idea because you know who you are right now. At least that's what it seems like. I guess sometimes I don't know, but I know that the things that I'm doing now that I wasn't doing a year ago, some things less than that. They feel right. And then as long as you're moving into the direction of the person you're trying to be, that's all, and enjoying it. Don't forget to enjoy it. Can't be stressed about it. If you're stressed about anything, you gotta take a new approach. There's some suffering is inevitable, but needless suffering, don't make yourself a martyr. Just you gotta enjoy the ride, but the ends don't always justify the means. You got to enjoy who you're becoming, because you're becoming your future self at every moment.